Turn your mind on and your TV off. It's time to hear the real truth behind what's really going on. Join Tia Severino, an advocate for truth, freedom, and spiritual growth, as she explores the real story behind what we are made to believe on her show, The People's Truth. In the next hour, you'll be exposed to shocking revelations, to lies you have believed in all your life. Together with her guests, she will unravel the facts behind the current events, health, wellness, faith, justice, and more. As Orwell said, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Join the conversation, leave a comment, or call in live 678-495-4345. Don't forget to like, share, and help spread the great message out. And now, here's Tia Severino.
Hello, and welcome to The People's Truth, where we dig deep into the issues that are really affecting our world. I'm your host, Tia Severino, and in this episode, I'm pleased to introduce you to Cilla Whatcott, who I had the pleasure of meeting in person last month, as she was one of the gold sponsors for the Next Steps conference. We had an amazing time, and we really hope that you are going to be as excited as we are about the fact that the digital replay for Next Steps conference is now available for you. All you have to do is go sign up, and you will be able to watch the conference videos, and we are so excited about that. Let me tell you about my guest today. Cilla Whatcott is producer and executive director of the Real Immunity film series. Cilla brings a rich and varied background of personal and professional experiences to her healing practice. She's lived in the Republic of the Marshall Islands, on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and aboard a sailboat in the Bahamas. Her travels to Asia, Russia, Europe, the Caribbean, and Micronesia have installed a deep respect for humankind and an intuitive understanding of human nature. She holds a BA degree from Arizona State University, a diploma from the 4-year professional program at Northwestern Academy of Homeopathy in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and a PhD in clinical homeopathy from Kingdom College. She was an instructor at Normandale Community College in Minnesota for 8 years, teaching classes about homeopathy, vaccines, and autism. She is the co-founder of a nonprofit 501c3 for the education of homeopathic practitioners in homeoprophylaxis. And yes, she has a much longer bio, but I had to truncate it just a little bit because I wanted to go ahead and say, Cilla, welcome to the show. We're so glad to see you, and we hope that you will introduce yourself to the viewers and tell us a little bit more, some of the things that I didn't include in your bio. You can feel free to share those here because you have quite a lot going on and you have done quite a bit. So we're really excited to have you here. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tia. It's thrilling to be here. Appreciate the invitation. So it was mentioned in my bio, I lived in the Marshall Islands for 10 years, 89 to 99. It was paradise in many ways. The Marshall Islands are 2,500 miles southwest of Hawaii. Very isolated, very small island, half a mile wide and 5 miles long. While we were there, we adopted a family. I have a child from Russia, from China, from Taiwan, and then I gave birth to one biological child as well. So quite a varied family, and they taught me quite a bit. And that's what kind of led me into my profession, really.
Wow. Well, that sounds amazing. I was going to ask you where the Marshall Islands were because I wasn't sure, but I've been to Hawaii. If it's anything like the beautiful islands of Hawaii, I'm sure it is like paradise on earth. So in your varied travels, you must have experienced different cultures, and that must have had some kind of an impression on what you're doing now. How would you say that your travels to other countries and other climates where things are done differently than they are here in the Western world, if you will, in America and in the Western world, what what are the most striking differences, and what about those experiences do you think led you into kind of what you're doing now?
Well, I think travel for anyone broadens their perspective, right? I mean, you meet other cultures, other places, so it really broadens your perspective and enables you to understand humanity in an unbiased way. You know, we live in a very narrow viewpoint here in the United States, and it just broadens it. But it was my adoption from China that really rocked my world and changed my paradigm completely, because we brought that baby home. She was failure to thrive. She was a year old and about 10 pounds. And she was given all of her inoculations and immediately went into aseptic meningitis.
Oh my God.
So I started researching then. That was 25, 26 years ago, and found the insert to one of them that mentioned aseptic meningitis as a side effect. So with that information, I then started attending conferences, the National Vaccine Information Center conference, looking at studies, reading, researching, digging much, much deeper below the surface. So my education really started there. And from there, I decided to go to homeopathy school. I'd already earned a bachelor's degree. I was actually, my undergraduate degree was in fine arts and dance, and I was in a company, performed with a Chinese company. I had a company. I had a studio, you know, so that was my life. And then these children with their different issues, asthma, ADHD, kidney reflux, they caused me to start seeking answers that were a little bit outside the box.
So it sounds like to me that you kind of got into the work that you're doing now, like many of us did, by being a parent of a child that had special needs, medical needs, and
right,
forced you to become a researcher, because that's what we do, because you just don't accept the answers that the mainstream medical is giving us. You know, that for me, when my son was diagnosed, and actually even a little bit before, because of my relationship with Bill Schindler, hyperbaric PHP director here in Georgia, I was already kind of, God put me where I needed to be to learn what I needed to learn, right? But just trying to heal my own child, I had to become a researcher, and you took it another step and you became a healer. So that's a beautiful story. And do your other children, do you have challenges with your other, because you said that you adopted multiple children from different parts of the world. Did they each kind of have to have the whole barrage of, you got to have these or you can't enter the country and you can't go to school, those things, you know what we're talking about? Did they suffer any ill consequences from those as well? Or?
They did, and we can see it, and they're functioning at very high levels, most of them, and we could see the effects of these events in their lives, and it caused me to really, really start investigating. And I had a lovely pediatrician, a conventional pediatrician, say to me, you should try homeopathy. There are some great studies for asthma, and nothing was working conventionally. And we went to homeopathy, and within 6 months, the asthma was gone.
Wow.
So I was blown away and started investigating the option of studying homeopathy, because I knew I couldn't dance forever. And I loved it. I was amazed. I took my other children. I saw kidney reflux and I saw migraines. I just saw such amazing things with homeopathy. I had to understand it. So that's when we came back to the States, and I embarked in 4 years of professional school for homeopathy.
Okay. So I think I understand somewhat what homeopathy is. I understand that the medicine is in a dilute form. It's energetic medicine, and that a lot of times it's taking the energy of the molecule of the thing that you're trying to heal because of. And that's really not probably the best description, but it's going to lead me right into the question that I think a lot of people out there might have when they're watching this, because we are so accustomed to allopathy, right? That the idea of homeopathy is kind of foreign. It didn't used to be before Rockefeller and his Feltzner.
Right.
Feltzner report.
The Flexner.
Flexner.
Yeah, right.
I knew I was going to get that wrong. See, I'm messing up names today. But before, we had an amazing, thriving culture of all these different traditional medical approaches, but they were all basically shut down and now are resurfacing. But most people, they think of doctors as the guy in the white shirt that comes in and writes you a prescription that you got to take to the drug store to get filled, and that's their idea of it. So for those who don't understand, can you give us kind of an explanation of what is homeopathy? I know you don't have a whole lot of time here to do so, but just so that folks that don't understand what it is might kind of have a little bit of an idea.
So people confuse homeopathy with supplementation, with vitamins, with herbs, with naturopathy. They think anything natural is homeopathic, and that's not entirely accurate. Homeopathy is a full system of medicine. And my education was completely about homeopathy, 4 years, about case taking, materia medica, provings. And it's really about like treating like. You coined it when you said the energy or the information within this plant matter, animal matter, minerals, it communicates to the human vital force in a way that sets about natural healing. So it's an organic process where the individual starts to heal, because what we do in our case taking is we find the central disturbance. What is it that's causing the symptoms? And I could have 10 people with the same diagnosis. They're going to get 10 different remedies, because it's about your subjective experience of that diagnosis, of those symptoms. It's about your history, your likes, your dislikes, your tendencies, what makes you mad. We look at the whole person and recognize, we honor the intelligence of the body to do the healing. So I have a short clip. This might be a good time for it. This is from one of my films, and this is Val Ohanian, who's one of the founders of my homeopathy school. And she's talking about homeopathy and this connection to the information. So I think this is a good time to play that clip, if you have it.
The way that remedies may work, well, an interesting question. I feel that there is not one answer that satisfies me, and so it's certainly not going to satisfy people who are skeptical. I feel like we don't have enough tools yet to measure how remedies work. But my understanding, the best one for me is the analogy of the tuning fork. So if we are energetic beings, electrical beings and energetic beings, we respond to shifts in energy, and when we apply the remedy, which is an energetic instrument, to the human, it alters the human state. And by using the tuning fork analogy, I mean if you sound a tuning fork tuned to the key of C and hold a second one up that's tuned to C, the second one will reverberate. If you have a tuning fork tuned to A and you hold up a C fork, the C fork will not match the A.
Wow, that was a great explanation. And I want to say that while it was playing and he was speaking and there was the sound vibration playing, that I felt that myself just sitting here listening to it. So it resonates to me. That gives me kind of like an indicator of truth also. So not only did I respond to the sound frequency, but I also felt the resonance of truth. And I think that speaks well to the topic that we're talking about with this energetic medicine.
Right. And there's also some scientific validation, which I can go into in a minute, whenever we have time, but hormesis and the quantum principle of potentization. And I can give you those in a very brief explanation as well.
Well, why don't we do this? We're going to take a quick little break, and when we come back to the other side of that break, we'll get the explanation for that. We'd love to hear
Great.
it.
Big medicine came in the 1980s and big dollars. But did you know that it used to be illegal in the United States to run a for-profit medical center? In 1983, they passed a law and they said, no, you know what, we're going to go for profit. Right there, your health became a commodity. Your wellness became a commodity. Your death became a commodity.
My friends, just because they're not locking you down right now, we are under attack. The inflation is by design. The higher food prices, the food shortages, this is the attack.
I have way more faith in God's created natural immunity inside of you that is self-governing than anything anybody sells you in a lab.
People say this to me, but he's so bright. Not in that way. He's not seeing with the heart. This is the heart intelligence, so I want you to see your life with the eyes of your heart.
This is our time. I'm tasked with telling you what we need to do. Keep doing what you're doing. Faster, harder, more. Let everyone know we are the children of God. We are created in the image and likeness of God. We have the power in our hands. We are the warriors of light. Tell everyone you know. Save everyone you can. And I'll see you at the finish line.
Welcome back to The People's Truth. Speaking of raising the frequency, man, Del Bigtree really brought it at the Next Steps conference. I just got some tingles from watching the promo. I hope you guys enjoyed the promo for the Next Steps conference. We're here with Cilla Whatcott. We've been talking about homeopathic medicine, how it's energetic medicine. We're dealing with frequencies here. We're dealing with vibrational levels here. We're dealing with information. We're dealing with, harmonization. And that is what homeopathy is about. So we were just on the other side of the break talking about the scientific evidence for the frequency energy exchange that's going on in the clip that we showed from Cilla. So if you don't mind, go ahead and expand on that thought. And then we're going to start talking about some of the problems that are facing us and how we can hit those head on. Because we're still talking about next steps, you guys. What are we going to do next? And Cilla has some amazing next steps for you too as well. So let's hear the science.
So just briefly, there are instruments coming out now that can measure these nanoparticles. That's the most important concept. And it's the quantum physics. When you succuss, when we dilute these remedies, they are shaken or succussed. And the succussion drives the electrons to higher orbitals. Wow. Okay. And when an electron passes the fifth orbital, the energy increases. Each orbital contains higher and higher energy. After the fifth, it's no longer physical. Now it's information. It's actually a wavelength, a frequency or a wavelength. And this is less crude, it's less material, and it's more energetic, so it's more potent. And what's happening is something called hormesis. And hormesis is applying a very light stressor in order to overcome that stressor and heal. So a really good example is you lift weights until you're tired. So now you've broken down the muscle fibers so they can rebuild back a little bit stronger. Or maybe you set a deadline for yourself. You have to have something done by a certain date. It's a little bit of a stressor. It motivates you to work hard and get to that date. So that's the hormesis that takes place also with homeopathy.
Fascinating. It almost sounds like what they're trying to tell us they're doing with the you-know-whats. A little bit of the bad stuff so your body can build up immunity, overcome it, if you will. But really, what that does is damages your immune system because it's falsely priming with the original antigenic sin. It is falsely priming the body to look for something in a form that it would not come to you naturally in. This is different because you're utilizing mucous membranes or topical application.
Right.
So
right.
you're not engaging the bloodstream or anything like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people right now are looking for solutions. So we have a real big problem right now. I know what I think it is, but what do you think it is?
Well, I think the problem started long ago. And I think that a huge contributor to the problem was direct-to-consumer sales that happened in 1997, where we are one of only two countries in the world, New Zealand and the USA, that pharma can market directly to individuals. Right. And the FDA actually did a survey shortly after launching that and found that 75% of doctors feel pressured to prescribe something, to pull out the prescription pad and write a prescription because individuals were coming in and asking for specific things based on this direct marketing. And also what it did, it created a fear of symptoms, a fear of disease. It shifted the entire relationship to natural childhood illnesses, to mild viruses. It shifted our relationship. So what I began seeing was clients come into my office who were terrified of a low-grade fever in their child. They were running to the ER with the least provocation. Wow. And they had lost all sense of intuitive maternal knowing that their child was going to survive this. So I had lots of tools to help parents navigate these early years, an understanding of viruses, an understanding of this healing matrix, how when you suppress things, they go deeper into the organism, and we see deeper and deeper symptoms. And, you know, I just wanted them to get back to intuition. And in one of my films, I interviewed Andy Wakefield, and he said a beautiful little comment about intuition, which I think it would be great to share with your audience what he had to say about maternal intuition.
Okay.
One thing I say to mothers in particular is you must trust your instincts. One thing I say to mothers in particular is you must trust your instincts. We are here on this earth now, not because of public health or medicine or antibiotics or vaccines, but because of maternal instinct. That is the most powerful force in the world. That mothers know when their children are well or they're ill. They know how to rear them. They have an instinct, and that instinct is that little voice. And it's there for a very, very good reason. It's there because it is our principal mechanism of survival. And if we ignore it, then we ignore millions of years of evolution. And parents need, mothers in particular, need to recognize the power and the reason for that voice being there and to trust it. And when something doesn't feel right to mothers, they should defer to that voice. Not to the man in the white coat, not to anyone else. And that's the beginning.
Well, we certainly love Dr. Andrew Wakefield. Andy is so well-spoken, and you could probably put a tape recorder next to him pretty much any time of the day and get words of gentle and humble wisdom. So yes, amazing little clip there. And it is true. I mean, the moment that they put this tiny human in your arms, you just want to do everything you can to keep them alive and hopefully get them to adulthood with some ability to survive, and not only that, but thrive. So that is true. That we definitely, the maternal instinct is so strong. And as we referred to earlier in this conversation, it's often the driving force behind many a warrior on the battlefield for truth.
So Tia, I saw how the fear generated by this direct marketing over the years, and the loss of intuition had affected young parents. I saw it graphically in my office. And something that Andy said to me made a deep impression. He said that the media ruined him. You know, he changed his profession as a result. And he said, I'm going to use media to change things. And that really rang a bell with me. And that's when I decided to create the Real Immunity series, because I wanted to get the message out, first of all, that fear was what we needed to stay away from. Intuition is what we needed to embrace. And something that I learned in homeopathy school called homeoprophylaxis was an answer, a solution to a lot of what we see going on, a lot of the devastation out there, and many, many parents were seeking it. So that's when I started the film series. I wanted to do just a film about homeoprophylaxis, but I realized, no, we need to crack the door first and gently bring people in with a deeper understanding of what fear was doing to them, and also how much their intuition could be embraced and could be valuable in this process of raising the next generation.
Well, I want to commend you for that. I agree with Andy. We must become the new media, which is why what we're doing here at UI Media Network is important. And what we're, there's so many other great platforms that you have to seek out. Children's Health Defense, what you've got going on. Robert Scott Bell, who was one of the speakers at Next Steps, has amazing content. So we've got to be the ones bringing the truth. Now, with the censorship, you kind of know who to watch. The ones that are getting censored the most are the ones that you should be watching. So, what changed, or what accelerated, or what changes do you see with regard to young families since you have put out this series of films on Real Immunity? And maybe touch a little bit on, and maybe we have to get into this in the next segment, but what changes you've seen as far as young parents with regard to the current scare that they have going on? Because I heard recently that only 2% of parents with children that are between the 6 months and 4 years old have actually signed up to be part of the experiment, which is great. But talk a little bit about the changes that you saw since your film, and then we'll come back after the break and talk about the current event.
Sure. So the intent of my film was, I had to ask myself, who am I directing this at? Am I trying to convince people? Am I trying to, bring people over to another way of thinking? No, I want to support the people who get it, the people who are already coming to me. I want to be a support and a source of information for them. So I brought on these pediatricians, immunologists, Del Bigtree, Andy Wakefield. I brought them in to inform people that, yes, they're on the right track. They're not alone, basically. And what I've seen is a huge uptick in education among young parents. In 2009, 10, 11, I taught at a community college, and I literally taught information sessions about the jab. And I would take studies or conferences that I went to and summarize things and present them. And it was news to parents. And now those parents could teach this class, that class.
Right.
Seriously, they have educated themselves, and I'm so impressed. And I, love to talk to these parents, because the ones that come to me now, they've got it. They understand, they've done their research. So I see a huge uptick in education, which is the way of consciousness. As it expands, we understand more and more. We have a broader vision. It's like we're looking from 10,000 feet instead of from 2 feet in front of us. And it's a good thing. So I'm very optimistic about where this is going. And I see the velocity increasing. It's speeding up, and more parents are just gaining this information and seeking a different way, which brings me to, the homeoprophylaxis piece, which is so, so important because I see it as a method to heal our relationship with microbes. Mm-hmm. Our relationship has been demonized with microbes. I mean, it sends fear through people, right. And that's not true nature at all.
I mean, we're more bug than human, so.
Right.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick little break. When we come back on the other side of things, we'll roll into homeoprophylaxis because a lot of people don't understand what that word means, just like they don't understand what homeopathy means. So come on and back after the break.
If this content resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel at uimedianetwork.org to stay updated with our uncensored shows. Also, like and follow us at UI Media Network on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and almost all your favorite podcasting platforms. Most importantly, if you're being censored on social media, write to us at contact@uimedianetwork.org to get your message out. And remember, keep raising that frequency.
We're back with The People's Truth with Tia Severino. My guest today is Cilla Whatcott, and we are talking about real immunity, the kind that you get from supporting your body and educating your body through information and energetic medicine, not the kind that comes from the drugstore or in a little vial. And so I'm delighted to have Cilla on the show today. Cilla, we were talking before about homeopathy, and now let's kind of talk about like what they're trying to do, what they tell us that, you know, the shots are supposed to do, versus what homeoprophylaxis, which I do know what the word means, but a lot of people out there might need a dictionary definition and explanation of what homeoprophylaxis is.
Sure. So I do have a written explanation if that can go on the screen.
Okay.
And I can define it. We call it HP for short. Okay. So HP is the use of these diluted substances. They can be animal, mineral, vegetable, or they can be no-sodes. And no-sodes are from disease discharges. And these diluted substances that have been diluted and succussed past Avogadro's number, there's no original molecules in them, they trigger a response that exercises the immune system. So it will familiarize an individual's vital force, their immune system, with the frequency or the information of a particular disease that's in nature. So when you come in contact with that disease, you know how to mount an immune response or repel the disease altogether. So it's just toned and exercised your natural immunity so that it's familiar to you. And that's the basic definition of it. Now, it has 3 applications. One is with childhood illnesses. There was a 15-year study by Dr. Isaac Golden in Australia. It's a peer-reviewed study. It's available on my site, realimmunity.org. And that's one application for children. Another application is for tropical disease, for traveling. That's been used for over 200 years, and it's endorsed by many countries, by India, by Cuba. And the last application is for epidemics or pandemics. So I've used it annually during flu season. I used it during the pandemic. And it has a very, very robust effectiveness rate, and it's completely safe. There is no cold chain needed, so it can be shipped all over the world easily. There are no needles involved, so non-medical personnel can be trained to give it. It is not species specific, so you can put it in the water of animals. You can give it to all ages, all genders. And it also addresses all mutations. So this is the most important part because we know that as things mutate, new inventions come out to address the mutations, and we'll never have enough new inventions, right? So homeopathy adapts to these mutations, so we don't have to keep changing it. So these three applications are worldwide. There have been studies in India, there have been studies in Cuba, studies in South America. The basic difference, because the current method was kind of taken from that concept of homeoprophylaxis, in that you have a small particle that excites the body to build a certain response, but it's all about attenuation. Attenuation means weakening, and HP is attenuated past any molecules, so there can't be any harm, right? Whereas other attenuations still have molecules there. Mm-hmm. Also, the method of delivery, the injection. That's not how we acquire natural disease. We acquire natural disease through mucous membrane, mm-hmm. which is how HP is delivered, the way nature does it. The use of excipients. I have a visual, a graphic of the amount of aluminum that a child receives in the first, I think, 18 months of life. Okay. That can be shared on screen. But we don't use any excipients, right? We don't use any animal mediums, so we don't have the DNA of other species that we're delivering. Also, HP does not emphasize Th2 action. It's not about making antibodies. It's a very balanced form that addresses both sides of the immune system. So these are all the differences. The goal is the same, supposedly, the intended goal, but the method is very, very different. And what we're doing is really building our natural immunity and association and familiarity with these microbes so that we can live in harmony with these microbes.
So hold on a second. I think my producer Ashley is looking for the aluminum slide.
Cumulative aluminum exposure, I think it's called.
Cumulative aluminum exposure, but I just wanted to pause here for a moment. So you're telling me that you can get the immune system to mount a response specific to a disease or an infection, and you don't have to put mercury in there to keep it, like, preserved?
Absolutely. No. Yeah, we don't need excipients, additives, adjuvants.
What about formaldehyde?
No, there's no preservatives necessary, because we've diluted this so that it becomes information. And then that solution is anointed on pellets that are inert, and the pellets are put against mucous membrane, but and the information is delivered. There's no aluminum, no mercury,
no
animal.
What about fetal cells?
No, none of that.
None of that.
There's none of that.
And it works.
That 90%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So my question, of course, I'm being a little bit facetious there, because, of course, we know that aluminum and mercury, formaldehyde, fetal cells, animal cells, insect cells, for crying out loud, are in the things that they tell you your children must have in order to stay healthy. And yet there is an alternative to educating the immune system against these types of infections that doesn't require crazy storage, there's no needles, there's none of this gunk in there. So my next question is I think I know the answer to this one, but I'd like to hear how you express it. If this is 90% effective, that's better than the 4% effectiveness that Moderna has. Again, not exact numbers, but I think I heard that recently. It's about 4%. Might not even be that. But why then? Is this really expensive stuff? Is it hard to produce? So you can't create big quantities, these stockpiles? Is there a reason why, do you think, that we are not using this method to combat the current crisis that we have been told that we're in? Because personally think it's a manufactured crisis. Well, what do you think the reason is? Is it just expensive stuff? It's hard to get. It's like gold.
It's not hard to get. It's not hard to produce. Cuba did an experiment for leptospirosis and eliminated leptospirosis. And this is a peer-reviewed study that can be accessed for pennies. It's no. And I think the answer is obvious. The same reason the Flexner report came out, and we don't see homeopathy taught in medical schools anymore. It's villainized in medical schools. So demonized. Yeah, it's simple, it's easy, and it's safe. It's completely safe. I have over 6,000 children in the children's program, and I provide support for the duration of the program, which is about 3 years. I do not hear complaints. I hear happy parents who are thrilled because unlike this paradigm of trying to prevent a disease, we are building the terrain. We are exercising the immune system. So initially parents will come to me and say, what about this disease and this disease and this disease? And they have this whole list in their mind. We know where they got the list from, right? The specific things that they're getting. And I say, we can talk about all those things. The basic program has 8 diseases in it. We can talk about those things. We can add those things. That's fine. I support them. I want to meet them where they're at. By the time they've gone through the beginning of the program, they're like, we don't need those. They're so healthy.
Doesn't matter, right?
They get sick, they get better, and it's fabulous. In fact, I have a graphic, and this is what I teach parents all the time. I love this, Tia. It's a graphic called the viral circle. Let's see if Ashley has that to put up. And I basically teach parents that children are intended to get viruses. This is what Mother Nature uses to build their immunity. And immunity is not just defending disease. Immunity is the differentiation between self and non-self.
Right.
We gain it through the period of no, mine, separation anxiety, teen years of I'm not you, I'm going to do my own thing and, express myself differently. We gain immunity and that sense of self versus non-self throughout our lives. So that is something that is holistic. It's all of us. It's not just about disease. So I tell parents, healthy children go through these viruses very quickly. And they start where they're exposed to a virus. They go through what we call a prodrome period. It's the beginning period before where it's hits your system, but you don't show symptoms yet. So the child might come home from school, be a little bit cranky or clingy, and the mother's like, "What's wrong with you?" There's a question. That night, the child's fever spikes. Okay, this is when the internal work is starting to happen. They're creating internal antibodies. The next morning, they've got a runny nose or a cough, or they're vomiting or diarrhea. The discharge is starting. So I take parents around this circle. If that's being shown on the screen, I'm not sure, but I take parents around this circle, and after that discharge, they might spike a higher temp, and that's the resolution of the virus, where those internal antibodies are learned. They're there, and then they're back to baseline. Now, a healthy child can go through this process in 24 to 48 hours, honest to goodness, whereas a child with a dysregulated immune system can hang up in that cycle for weeks or months.
Wow.
And what causes the dysregulation? Bombarding the system with multiple diseases at once through the wrong entrance, right?
Yeah.
And then suppressing whatever symptoms come up with antibiotics or topical things or whatever, fever reducers. So you suppress it. So it's like you've got a car with the wheels stuck in the mud.
Yep.
They're spinning, trying to mount an immune response to get out of that, and they can't. So they come to me and they've had a cough for 6 weeks, or sinusitis, or ear infections. A healthy child with a regulated immune system does not suffer in quite that way.
Right.
And my HP parents are reporting to me, oh my gosh, they come home with a virus, they're well in 2 days, they're back to school.
Yep.
So this is the contrast that I'm seeing. This is what parents are learning. And this is what I am so passionate about, because I've been screaming this from the rooftops for the last 20 years and recognizing the damage we are doing by manipulating the immune system. And it makes me furious. It's manipulation.
Yeah.
And I want to do everything I can to support parents in the natural process of disease, fevers, all of that, because that's nature's way of aligning us with microbes. And we got to do that. And Sayer G said, he's the Green Med Info author, said, if we keep up this paradigm of a war against disease and bacteria, we're not only threatening ourselves, we're threatening our planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's infantile. We've got to grow up and we've got to recognize that we live with these microbes, and HP is the way to heal that relationship and go forward with pandemics, with childhood disease, with all of it. And I'm just passionate about it.
Awesome. I can go into a whole lot of excitement over what you just talked about. We're going to have to save it for after the break, because we are up against the last break. And when we come back, we're going to dive right into some solutions, because I know that my audience is really going to be excited to hear some of the things that we have to share after the break.
Are we being manipulated? Is the media really telling us the truth? Can we trust the food we eat? What's actually in our medicines? Find all your answers with me, Tia Severino, on my show, The People's Truth. As an advocate for truth, health freedom, and spiritual growth, I will be digging deep into the heart of the matter, from personal freedoms, current events, and much more. My guests and I will get you thinking in ways you've never thought before through our insights and thought-provoking discussions. Tune in every other Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern on UI Media Network. Catch me live on uimedianetwork.org and on Facebook, YouTube, Spreaker, and almost all your favorite podcasting platforms. It's time to wake up. Find out what's really going on. The People's Truth, telling revolutionary truths in a time of universal deception.
Thanks for sticking around to watch this episode of The People's Truth. Like I said, if you're enjoying this content, you want to make sure that you are signed up for membership at uimedianetwork.org. We are building out the exclusive content, which you will only be able to get as members on uimedianetwork.org. As we know, the censorship is just out of control, and a lot of the People's Truth episodes have actually been taken off of YouTube and Facebook already. So in order to make sure that you don't miss any of that content, get over to uimedianetwork.org and sign up, get on our mailing list, and get a membership. You guys help us keep doing what we're doing and bringing you this uncensored content that you really need to know. So anyway, my guest today is Cilla Whatcott. We've been talking about real immunity, the kind that you get from educating your body through energetic medicine via homeopathy and homeoprophylaxis versus the allopathic way of pills and shots. And there's just so many things that we could talk about. Obviously, I think that the part of the problem with the allopathic medical model is that it's based on patent medicine. And when we were chatting earlier, I was kind of going to say, hey, can you get a patent on homeopathic remedy? And I'm assuming that the answer is no. And you can't charge hundreds of dollars for the medicine on the market. So there's no incentive for these guys to ever have, let you have access to this information, which is why I've got Cilla Whatcott coming on today, really to talk about what is homeopathy and homeoprophylaxis, so that we can get into some of the solutions so that you can have healthy, thriving bodies and healthy, thriving families. So, Cilla, thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you again for being a sponsor of the Next Steps Conference and we're just excited to have you share. What do you think are the next steps now for people? And
I think people are waking up to natural medicine, all kinds of natural medicine. Homeopathy is a full system, and it's really amazing at deep healing. But people must choose their own methods. Medicine must be individualized. Healthcare must be individualized. Functional medicine is starting to move towards that, but it's still reductionist in the sense that it's using supplements. It's manipulating physiological aspects of the human body by increasing things, stopping things. You know what I mean? It's really a form of reductionism because it's manipulating. Whereas finding the central disturbance with homeopathy, and I'm talking about classical homeopathy, which is different than homeoprophylaxis. Homeoprophylaxis is designed for the onslaught, for strengthening, exercising the immune system, the terrain, to be able to live healthy and prevent these things. But for chronic disease, we know that allopathic medicine doesn't work. And that's evidenced by so many of my clients in the allopathic field come from the specialties of emergency medicine or anesthesiology. Those two specialties have a deeper understanding that emergency medicine is great. It's made leaps and bounds. If you're hit by a car, you want an ER doc, absolutely. Anesthesiology, because they have kind of a relationship to consciousness. They see people going in and out of consciousness. They see how it affects people. So they have broader viewpoints. But it can't keep going like it is. It's a broken system. And more people are coming to natural medicine. They need to choose their methods. They need to recognize that homeopathy is a full system. And there are many people who take a weekend course with a company that sells a product, and then they call themselves a homeopath. This is not classical homeopathy. You need to find someone with a CCH after their name, someone who has done a full 4-year study of homeopathy to really dive deep for healing. I think that homeoprophylaxis is going to become more and more accepted and utilized. The people who are using it in my practice are extremely happy. I'm training professionals, MDs, DOs, midwives. I want them to be able to share with their clients, what it is, even if they don't use it, just to be aware of it. So when people come to them and say, I've heard of this thing, what do you know? They will say, yes, I've had some training. I know, I've seen the studies, and it's valid. It's a choice. I think the most important thing is for people to have a choice. Absolutely.
Do you have other options other than to just keep going down the side effects hamster wheel, which is, I describe it as like you have a medical condition, and so you're taking a medicine prescribed to you by a doctor for that medical condition, but that drug has a side effect that causes you to take another medication and then another medication, and it's never really fixing the problem. And so you just cascade on layers and layers of medical, until you don't even, you got a handful of pills, and it's just not the answer. And next thing is surgery, and next thing is this, and it's a downward spiral. And so we got to get people out of that mindset that the answer comes from a script, right? But we also have to people need to understand that we were created in the divine image and likeness of God, and that we can heal. We certainly have to remove the interference and provide the right energetic information to balance things out, but the body can heal itself. And so I think that has a lot to do with what you're espousing.
Right. We have that capacity. We absolutely do. But there's a big jump between that person taking 7 medications and getting to a place where you can access natural medicine. And it's fear. Yeah. It's fear of symptoms, because a symptom is only the body's expression of something to encourage you to go deeper. and to ask questions and to understand. My symptom of a headache may be a very different thing than your symptom of a headache. So one pill isn't going to do it. It's just going to suppress the symptom. We need to understand, am I overworked? Am I worried? Am I blaming people? What's the genesis of this headache? Instead of being afraid of the symptom and wanting to squash the symptom immediately. So those people on all those medications, it's very difficult for them to make the leap to something like homeopathy because they think they're just going to replace a pill with a remedy. And that doesn't work very well. And once they understand that I have to understand where they live in an energetic place, I have to see the central disturbance, I have to connect the dots and understand what connects all of this, what element in nature would cause these symptoms if you took it in material form. And that may be anything, an animal, a mineral, a vegetable. So it's deeper, it's more complex, and more I'm getting people who get that and who are seeking that and understand that and aren't just looking for a pill replacement. Same with HP. It's not just replacing the jab with a pellet. It's not that at all. It's coming at the immune system from a different paradigm. We are healing your relationship with nature, with microbes, so that you no longer have fear. You have faith in that natural process, and you watch it. These parents become much more observant of their children, and they see. I just did a podcast with a mom who told me that she watched as her daughter would take the HP remedy that was scheduled for that day. She'd be a little more clingy, wanted to be held more for half a day. And then all of a sudden, she started speaking in sentences instead of 2 words at a time.
Wow.
So the kids make these developmental leaps. I hear this all the time, exactly as if they have a disease. Because we know when kids get sick, they get better, and then they make a little bit of a jump developmentally. But with HP, there's no risk. There's no side effects. It's a completely organic process. So it is so in tune with nature, and it's beautiful to see. So, my job is so uplifting because I interface with these parents who are loving this, and I love supporting them, and I love teaching them. It's the best thing that I could do.
That's amazing. Well, I can feel your energy through the screen. Such a great vibration. Let's make sure that people know where they can find your Real Immunity film series, how they can connect with you, how they can, follow the work that you're doing.
Sure. They can go to realimmunity.org, O-R-G. They can get a free, the first section of my first film. All my films are on Gaia.com, but they can see for free the first 20 minutes of the first film. They can enroll in an HP program that includes a video, a booklet for keeping the schedule, a 30-minute consult with myself, and support for the duration of the program. If they sign up with me, I will be personally delivering all this. There are 2 other trained homeopaths on my site that if my schedule's too full, they can sign up with them. And whoever you sign up with, that's who will be following you. So all of that is available to you. There's lots of free things if you sign up for the newsletter, lots of education. And I don't want to miss showing the last clip, which is something that Del Bigtree said when I was interviewing him. Because one of the most valuable things, Tia, that I learned in homeopathy school was that there are no accidents. Never. When I have a parent call up and say, oops, I gave it 3 times instead of 2 times, or whatever happened, I dropped the bottle, I don't have it anymore. There are no accidents. Everything happens exactly like it's supposed to happen. That gives me great confidence. And I want to share this clip by Del Bigtree about that very topic.
Okay.
The only way we have a chance is if God is with us, that if there's something bigger than all of us going on here. And so though this moment seems scary or this could undermine us, I have to assume that that too is God, because You know, I use a little rougher language, but I would say either God is with us or we are screwed. You know, and it's just and so every time it looked like something was going wrong, I just said, this too must be God.
Such words of wisdom, as always with Del, he brings it. Well, thank you so much, Cilla, for bringing your beautiful energy to this episode of The People's Truth. Really appreciate it. Everybody else out there, thanks again for watching, and stay tuned. In a couple more weeks, we're going to have another episode of The People's Truth. On the way out, I just want to take a moment to say this episode has been dedicated to the memory of my sweet Lucy Lou, my Chewini dog who I've had in my life for the past 12 years. She was an old lady, and it was time for her to cross over that rainbow bridge. As we know, all dogs go to heaven. So I'm confident that she is up there, and she is just looking down happily, loving her family here, and we just miss her, and she was a good dog. That's all I can say. Lucy was the best dog ever. And for all of those out there who've recently said goodbye to their pets, we hold them in our hearts forever, even when they pass on. We'll see you in a couple of weeks on The People's Truth. Until then, love of you. Bye-bye.
Whoa. My mind has officially been blown wide open. As yours? Keep sharing the show and join us in our mission to educate the world with uncensored truth. As they say, together we are stronger, our voices louder, and the synergy of our actions more powerful. If you have any comments or questions for Tia and her guests, send us an email at contact@uimedianetwork.org. Until then, stay safe, stay tuned. The UI Media Network and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.